Hey guys, my name's Doug with Infotainment.com. Today we're working with the 2013 to 18 Ram truck. This particular truck and several others on the road trim levels don't come with the backup camera. So today we're going to show you a little bit about the different options you have regarding backup camera. So this first package here is actually a factory kit by Mopar. It is pretty confusing. There's a lot of wires, a lot of connections that you have to splice into to get your power, your ground, your LIN bus, so on and so forth. It's a great kit, but pretty difficult to install. So that's the reason why we designed a factory Ram tailgate handle camera with our own wiring loom, which will run up the chassis of the truck and into the back of the your factory radio display, and it gives you factory backup camera capability. Now the cool thing about going with the factory camera, there is one wire that you have to tap into, which is the LIN bus, and that's going to give you the dynamic backup grid lines. Some people love them, some people don't really care, but if you're one of the guys that loves them, this is the kit you want to get. Your other option is to go with an aftermarket. This is a factory Mopar handle with an aftermarket camera lens. Even though the quality is great, the one thing you are not going to get is dynamic grid lines with this kit. You will get grid lines, but they won't turn as you move the wheel. This is definitely the easiest kit to install and the cheapest. So today what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to install this kit in a Ram truck. It's going to be a very similar installation with the factory one, but we're going to show you this one today. Once it's all installed, you're going to run the OBD Genie CRVC programmer, and what that's going to do is that's going to program your radio display to activate rear camera when in reverse. This particular truck has the bed liner, and holding this part in is 8 Torx T27 screws. So we're going to go ahead and remove all 8 of those. Alright, now that those 8 screws have been removed, we can pull off our bed liner and then lift up this plate here. That'll give you access to the actual mechanism of the handle itself. And then you'll also notice a connector in here. If you have the power locking tailgate handle, you'll have the connector here. So what we're going to do is we're going to swap these components with the handle that we send you. So the first thing we're going to do is remove these 2 red locking tabs. We can slide the bars out of the place. We can unplug the connector and remove the 2 bolts. Now we just need to remove these 2 8mm nuts. And then once we do that, the handle itself will just slide out of place from underneath. Then what we do is we're going to switch the locking mechanism from this original factory handle over to here, and there's 2 8mm screws that hold that in place. Alright, now that we have the lock switched out, the handle's ready to be installed. So what we'll do from the underside is we'll feed our wires up through the hole. Now the assembly can go right back on where it used to be, and we'll reinstall the 2 8mm nuts. then plug back in our factory wiring. And then we'll reinstall the bars. Now we can run the wiring back behind here and then run it through our tailgate. I'm going to stick the wiring in here and fish it from the other side. And once we pull the slack, you can fish it down underneath the truck really any way. There may be a hole or two. In this case, there's a hole right here for me to fish it right down. After you do this, you could reassemble the tailgate itself with your liner if you had one, and the remaining bolts. So now we have the replacement handle in. It looks nice and factory here. Ensure that it works, obviously, the handle that is. And then you'll notice down here, we have the wiring that we ran. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the loom and we're gonna plug it in. It can only come in one way, so don't force it in, just let it go in naturally. That way, if you have to remove the tailgate for any reason, you're gonna want a quick disconnect, so you can just disconnect it so you can remove the tailgate. But in this case, we're gonna go ahead and plug it in. Then we're gonna run this along the chassis or the frame using zip ties to make it nice and snug, and then we're gonna come in by the driver firewall. All right, now that we have the loom here ran along the chassis or frame, it's nice and zip tied along the way. Just keep it away from moving parts. There's really no wrong way to run the wiring into the cab. Different installers have their different methods. There's a couple grommets in here that you could feed it through. What I like to do is just remove this lower kick panel, just held in with clips. And then you'll notice right here is the emergency brake line. So what you can do is actually just sneak it in through there. It gives you access right underneath the truck there. Now that the wire's through, it's a little tight, so you kind of have to work it a little bit. But now that the wires are through, you can bring in the loom. Even if you have to trim back this grommet a little bit, use some sealant if you like a nice factory finish. And kind of put it back into place as you desire. Then, now that we have this in, we can run it just behind the brake pedal using our zip ties. Keep it away from obviously your gas and brake pedal, kind of high up under here. Then we're going to feed it into the center into the radio. All right, now we have our power, ground, and our video. So what we're going to have to do is interface this with the radio. So what we're going to do is remove it. There's a little cubby up here. It's got two Torx T20s that hold it in. And then sometimes in this cubby here, there will be a screw as well. This particular truck doesn't have it. So once you do that, it's just held in with retaining clips. You can kind of fold this down here. In fact, what you could do is just unplug it. It just kind of gets it out of the way. Then you have 4 7mm screws here that hold in your radio. Now, as long as your radio is a touchscreen, doesn't matter if it's the Uconnect 5.0 or RA2 in this case, in this particular installation, or even if you have the big 8.4-inch display, the installation process is identical. If you have the standard RA1, which isn't a touchscreen, come check out Infotainment.com. We sell these radios and the larger ones all day, so people can install their backup cameras, cargo cameras, so on and so forth. So now the radio is removed and the bezel here, what we're going to want to do now, this is a switched power source here, which is great about the Ram trucks. They have switched. If you have the center console here, you'll also have a switch in there as well, kind of on the right side. But in this case, what we're going to want to do is disconnect the connector that's in the back, and we're going to run a pass-through harness, which will allow us to tap into that switch power source so we can tie our camera's power and ground easily and out of the way. So what I'll use is kind of a long screwdriver here just to kind of push the pin in and then slide it out. Now all we have to do is use this pass-through harness. We'll plug this back into there. And once we run our power and ground from the camera behind here, all we have to do is just tap it in. Alright, as you can see, we ran the power and the ground just up through a slot down back here. All the excess wiring is tucked back there with the zip tie. So as I mentioned, that leaves us with our video and our power and ground. I demonstrated earlier how to plug this in. The other end just plugs into here. Then all you have to do is just tap or crimp these two wires for your power and ground for your camera. Now the great thing about doing it with the switch power source is when you shut the vehicle off, for those of you who don't know, it cuts the power off to the camera. If you put it on a constant source, then it could drain your battery, especially if you don't use the truck very often. Now these are kind of some fancy crimpers here. You can use really anything. A lot of people use needle nose pliers, pliers in itself. Just make sure you got a nice good connection and it's not going to pull out. Then just plug the other end of this little harness into the same slot as before. Alright, we got our power all situated. We have our RCA video connection coming from the camera itself. Now what we'll include is this pass-through harness. So there's going to be basically two inputs. You're going to have the yellow for your backup camera, and those of you who want to do a cargo camera, you'll notice a blue. So in this particular case, we're doing a backup camera, so we'll plug these in together. This is a pass-through harness, so you're just plug in your factory wiring into the female end of our pass-through, lock that into place. This won't be used in this application. You're just really using this pass-through harness just to get the backup camera input. Now once we've done that, we can, if you want, you could tape this together just as well as the other connections as well that we've done. But in this particular case, we're just going to go ahead and reinstall the radio. Alright, now everything's buttoned back up and put it back into its place using the same screws. So we're going to go ahead and demonstrate. The camera won't work yet. So even though everything's connected, if you put the truck in reverse, you're not going to change the screen, the factory touchscreen. That has to do with not only this particular system, the RA2 with the 5-inch screen, but also the 8.4-inch, the RA3 and 4. The last and final step to activate it, we partner with obdgenie.com. to create a programmer to program the vehicle's computer to tell the radio to turn on the backup camera image when in reverse. So all you have to do is just plug in the programmer. We're just waiting for a green light. Now that we have the green light, we can remove the programmer and stow it away. All right, once we remove the programmer, we just turn the vehicle off for a couple minutes just to let it sleep. Let's go ahead and fire it up. So now, when you go in reverse, now you have backup camera. It works really well. As you can see, it makes backing up a cinch. Here at Infotainment.com, we have a whole lot of cool stuff. If you want to upgrade to the touchscreen radio, maybe you just have the RA1. In that case, you can upgrade to this one here, so it's backup camera compatible. Maybe you want to go to the nice big 8-inch screen. We carry all those upgrades, factory upgrades. Also, what's recommended, if you're going ahead and you're installing a backup camera, why not install a cargo camera? You got a camera that's built into your third brake light, so you can check out your cargo or your gooseneck. Here's the factory one we also sell. These are compatible with the 8.4-inch screens, not necessarily the 5-inch, because you have no way to go back and forth between backup and cargo, but certainly an option for the customers with the bigger screen. So come check us out, Infotainment.com. Thanks for watching, guys.